By the early 2000s, cable television wasn't just successful, it was one of the most profitable industries in America. Every month, millions of households paid subscription fees. At the same time, advertisers paid billions of dollars to reach those same viewers. This meant cable companies were getting paid twice, once by customers and once by advertisers. It was an incredibly powerful business model. The more channels they offered, the more they could charge. The more viewers they attracted, the more advertisers would pay. For years, the money seemed endless. As a result, many executives believed cable had become an essential utility, like electricity, like water, like the telephone. They assumed consumers would always be willing to pay for television. What they failed to understand was that consumers weren't paying because they loved cable. They were paying because they had no alternative. And the moment a better alternative appeared, loyalty would disappear almost overnight. As cable companies grew larger, many customers became increasingly frustrated. Monthly bills kept rising, packages became more expensive, and customers often found themselves paying for channels they never watched. Someone who only wanted a handful of channels might be forced to purchase hundreds. Sports fans paid for movie channels, movie fans paid for sports channels, children network were bundled together with the news channels. Consumer had little choice. The system was designed to maximize revenue rather than convenience. And because most households lacked alternatives, cable companies had little incentive to change. Year after year, prices increased, customer satisfaction declined, yet the industry remained confident. After all, where else could people go? That question would soon have an answer. Perhaps the biggest threat to cable wasn't technology, it was a generation. Millions of young people were growing up with computers instead of televisions. They spent more time online, more time gaming, more time browsing the internet. For older viewers, television remained the center of entertainment. For younger viewers, it became just one option among many. The shift was subtle, so subtle that many industry leaders ignored it. But while cable executives focused on existing customers, an entirely new generation was developing completely different habits. They expected information instantly, they expected convenience, and most importantly, they expected control. Waiting for television schedule felt increasingly outdated. The future audience was already moving away from traditional television, long before streaming became mainstream. When Netflix launched streaming in 2007, many people dismissed it. The service was limited, internet speed was still improving, and cable television remained dominant. At first glance, Netflix looked insignificant compared to the giants of television. But Netflix understood something cable companies didn't. People don't buy technology, they buy convenience. Customers didn't care about how streaming worked. They cared that they could watch what they want whenever they wanted, without schedules, without contracts, without expensive equipment. Netflix wasn't simply introducing a new product, it was introducing a new expectation. And expectations are extremely difficult to reverse. Every industry reaches a point where decline becomes unavoidable. For cable television, that wasn't when subscriber numbers started falling. It was when consumers stopped recommending cable to the younger generation. Parents no longer encouraged their children to sign up. Young adults moving into their first apartment often skip cable entirely. Instead, they subscribe to Netflix, then Hulu, then Amazon Prime. For millions of people, cable wasn't being replaced. It was never being adopted in the first place. This created a problem the industry couldn't solve. You can recover lost customers, but it's much harder to attract customers who never intended to buy your product. By the mid 2010s, the writing was on the wall. Cable television wasn't facing a temporary challenge, it was facing a permanent transformation of consumer behavior. The day cable television started dying wasn't marked by a dramatic headline. There wasn't a single announcement, there wasn't a single collapse. Instead, it happened quietly. It happened when millions of consumers realized they no longer needed television to watch television. That realization changed everything. Because throughout history, dominant industries often believe their greatest strength is their size, but size alone doesn't guarantee survival. Adaptation does. Cable television spent decades controlling entertainment. But control became less valuable than convenience, and once convenience won, the outcome was inevitable. The day cable TV started dying wasn't the day it lost customers. It was the day consumers discovered they had a choice. And once people had a better choice, history rarely moves backwards.